And when I say hold yourself, I want all of you get ready to stop. When I say stop, don't move. And when I say get it, I want all of y'all to go hold it now. Boogie woogie.
I think we're live.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Discover RPG, the show where Angela, myself, and Logan chat about RPGs and D&D and overall just have a good time. Still working on that pithy catchphrase opening thing.
Angela, yourself, and Logan? There's three of us?
It feels weird talking about myself in the third person, so I feel the need to clarify. No one thinks I'm some sort of like temporary announcer person. Anyway, so welcome to the show. I hope everybody had a lovely holiday. Whatever you celebrate. It has come to my attention that today's Boxing Day, which I don't celebrate. I'm not a practitioner of boxing, so I don't. But how are you doing, Logan?
I'm good. I also am not a pugilist, so I don't do boxing, nor do I have servants to swap places with. So I don't, which was one of the traditional things that happened on Boxing Day. If my crazy history I learned from sitcoms actually means anything, then that was something that traditionally happened on Boxing Day.
Maybe it also counts if you've played Metal Gear Solid. You sneak around under a box. That could also be an activity.
Ah.
Yeah.
Or if you like to pack things, you work at Amazon maybe. Every day is Boxing Day at Amazon.
Or if you're really bad at unboxing videos, you just end up packing anything you get. Videos. Well, you just for some reason the boxes end up taped up even more when you try to videotape.
Right.
You're just really incompetent at it. Yeah.
Like there's a girl online. She's disabled. She has no arms, and she does unboxing videos, and they are the most hilarious thing ever.
Like
she really gets into it.
Oh,
she uses her face and her mouth, and she just goes crazy and
more power to her.
It's kind of hilarious. She loves doing it, evidently. So it cracks me up. Or the guy that does unboxing videos with chainsaws. I think that one's fun.
Oh gosh, that does
Pretty
not
sure
result in a.
Month.
I was gonna say that does not result in a product. The box was great. It chainsawed real well. I don't know what was inside it, but the box was real good on the part.
This iPad didn't work when I got it. 1 out of 10. I was a half out of 10 and half out of 10 over there too.
Oh, so it's what, the 26th of December. So we just had Christmas. Was your Christmas okay? We did.
I don't know. I was so tired.
Flew by.
I had zero sleep. I got 12 hours last night. My body finally said, "You're gonna pass out now." I went, "We
Productive. That sounds
biologically
productive.
We didn't have a game last night because of it, which was my bad, but that's. Tessa took over and did a honey heist.
I heard honeys were heisted.
Along with our wonderful mod Fennec and a couple of other. Our community organizer. She's much more than a mod. And a couple of the countless heroes over there, Jay and things. But due to we don't have that up on the YouTube yet because due to Twitch's rules, we're not allowed to put it up for 24 hours. So that'll go up tomorrow. But it is on Twitch of VOD. You can watch it here.
Ooh, exciting. I only have one thing to continue talking about for our banter segment.
Okay.
Do you have any, let's say, safe for public announcement New Year's resolutions for Nerdsmith? Or this?
Do I have any robotic language and
safe for public Angelas? Safe for public announcement? Any sort of resolutions for the show, or for Countless Heroes, or for Nerdsmith?
New Year's resolutions. That's what we're talking about. Oh, yes. Got it. Okay.
Professional New Year's resolutions.
Professional New Year's resolutions
that you can share with the public that aren't just let's have a director's meeting improvisationally live.
Well, for this show, the goal is to start bringing on more and more guests. We have a long list of guests we'd love to have. A couple of people that come to mind for me, that have been on the network before. Keith Baker would be great to have on. I would love to have Keith Baker. I'd love to have Ben come back from Puff and Force. I thought he was.
I'd love to chat with Ben and not be ill.
Had a chance to do it. Matt Mercer has been on the network before. I'd love to have him come on to the show and talk with us. And I know that he does Wednesdays. Our work for him, so that should be something we can do. Sly Flourish, we've talked about having Sly Flourish on for a while.
Oh yeah,
and he's actually agreed to do a segment. He just can't do it Wednesday, so it'll be a pre-recorded. Yes. But that's okay. So
if it's pre-recorded,
as we go.
If it's pre-recorded, I can add a laugh track.
There you go. So people actually laugh at our non-funny jokes. So that's those are the people we have on. I'd love to bring on some people who are newer to D&D too, to kind of discuss and see how their introduction has gone and the things that they're seeing as new people. Because
that sounds like
as somebody who's
that sounds like getting in touch with Scraticus and asking him about any of his players.
I'd love to have Scraticus on. But yeah, somebody who is a 20-year veteran, it's hard for me to see the game from a perspective of somebody who's just starting to play. And I would love to kind of get that angle on things. As for the network, getting the membership stuff set up, getting our store open so we can start selling products. We have some amazing products we're ready to start going. That's all stuff that we can talk about. I wasn't going to announce this till later, but I did.
That's what I said. Say for public announcement if you don't want to.
Discover RPG. Well, I wasn't going to announce the name, but I was going to say that Discover RPG has our first sponsor, which next week we will be announcing. And I'm very excited to be working with this company. And not only are they sponsoring this show, they're sponsoring the entire network. So it will be a lot of fun to see what's going on there.
The videos that we plan on making will be potentially made in cooperation with them.
Correct. Yes, we're going to be made. The videos that we're going to be doing, the little short videos, which will start next week, will be in partnership with them, and will be content that we release through their website first, and then we'll go on to our YouTube shortly after. Well, it'll always be on our YouTube. It'll just be you'll only be able to find it there, and then it'll go public after. When the next video is done. So about every once a week, we're planning on doing that. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I want to mimic Simone Gertz's videos, her shitty robot videos. I might be robotic right now.
You are a little bit, but that's okay.
that she puts all over the screen, scrolling words that say "sponsored, sponsored, sponsored." So you're very clear that this video is sponsored. It's quite wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. But yeah, we've got a lot of amazing things coming up. We're going to be refocusing down our how we focus on projects, so we don't have so many projects going on at once, and then they all start to tend to fall through the things. And I mean, we learned a lot over our first year.
Oh yeah,
and even though we're not a year old yet, we are completing our first year in business. It was over half the year, so by most standards, we will have been in business for 1 year. So yeah, I think we did really good here. I think we've done a lot of really cool, incredible things. We got a lot of new shows coming. We may be looking at possibly retiring a couple of shows just to shows that we haven't been able to update or something, just kind of moving them to the wayside.
Putting them out to podcast pasture so we can
podcast pasture. We'll have the content available still, and we might revisit them occasionally, but like Discover or 20-Sided DM, which this is what that was supposed to be. This kind of just took over that, and
we have rebuilt it. We had the technology.
Charm and Trouble became too much of a logistical issue for them to get together. They're still planning on doing things together. It just
they still sing all the time on stream.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They do all their singing on stream, so you can go over there and see that. So the point is, nothing's going away, but we're just restructuring it a little bit. We've done the full the website revamp just happened over this last quarter, so that's all done.
Yeah, it's all fair.
We'll be doing testing over the next couple of days of our new membership system, and we've resolved one major issue with the website that was there. So we got a lot of things coming, and my focus next year is going to be on new content, new guests, and expanding our subscriber base. That's going to be the big thing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next subdrive. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we're also going to be adding a new streaming show. We have at least one new streaming show coming to the network. Well, they're already a part of the network. We just we're working on getting all the details lined up and getting their first show done, so we can, or getting their logos and stuff done, so we can get them streaming. But they'll be probably Wednesday afternoons around 5:00, right before Countless Heroes. So Wednesdays will be Nerdsmith Day.
Wednesdays like our TGIF. It's gonna be great.
Yes, TGIW, Twig, TWIG. Can we do TWIG? Thank Wednesday, it's God. There is a Santa Claus. Virginia.
Are you there?
Okay.
God, it's me Wednesday.
Are you there, God? It's me Wednesday.
Man, all this talking about new stuff coming up makes me want to take a nap again. But we have a show. I will steal myself.
Show. We're already 20 minutes into it, and we have a full session plan here.
We do. I'm very.
Everything is full. There's no way we're getting through all.
No, we're gonna power through. I think we can get through at least most of it.
Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead. Well, let's go through these real quick. Parlez-vous Infernal. We talk about D&D and language, or RPGs and language. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the difference between comprehending and reading, which is
a nice esoteric subject.
Yeah, a great way to start. The PC Farm Upstate is talking about retiring PCs mid-game. Challenge time. Yes. Challenge time was Angela's challenge last week was to talk about playable monster races and the cool classes we can put them with. Mm-hmm. Light Up the Forge will be our final update for World Ember. We'll do a summary probably next week, but we'll talk a little bit about that today. Taming of the Brew, we've got a neat homebrew to show you. Different Folks is
talking about variations on races. So
variations.
Doing something outside of what is rules as written, or just playing within the confines of a race.
Right. One of us is talking about. I changed the name of it.
That's a good point. You made a segue earlier. You talked about wanting to talk to people who had just started playing, and I have a sort of homebrewy game style that me and my husband have run that we think is really an interesting way of introducing people to 5e. And we took it from a Reddit post then we've
Right.
expanded it considerably, and we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, so one of us is a segment where we're going to talk about onboarding new players, meeting new players, what to do, etiquette, things like that. And then review time, we're going to be reviewing an abstract maps article that was done on D&D Beyond. So
yeah, I was really
so
excited
how
about that. That has revolved around a lot of things we've been talking about in the last few weeks, about just alternate play styles and theater of the mind versus maps, and then this talks about a lot of options and a lot of variations on that I really like. So I'm excited. I am excited about all of these topics. I'm super
So that is
glad
our
to be
show
here.
today. That was our show today. Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye. We're one
So,
away
all right,
from
so what about-
400 followers, by the way. It'd be super nifty if we could get one more during show
That
today.
would be super nifty if we can get our 400 follower today. We would really enjoy that.
Let's
So,
make this
let
show
me know.
super good, and people will
Oh,
think about
Okay,
following.
we'll go ahead and do our best.
This time we'll try to make a really good show.
We'll try to
Not like all
try
those
to do
crappy
that.
times we did.
All right, Parlez-vous Infernal.
Topic 1, you brought this up because it's a bit of an issue of semantics. You wanted to talk a little bit about phrasing of certain spells and abilities and what they do in terms of your language comprehension, and then how they
Yeah,
might not
and I
be
had
quite what you
looked up-
think.
Now, I looked up the spells on D&D Beyond, which, if you don't have D&D Beyond, I highly recommend it because all the errata is put in there instantly and all of that. So
Has a
I'm pretty
great
sure they're
theme
up to
song.
date. But yes, there is.
I didn't mean to derail you with that.
That's all right. There is. There's a lot of spells and abilities that deal with language. And I just think that it was worth talking about because while these are probably up to DM interpretation, they are different. And when it comes to, if there's one thing I've learned about Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins and oh man, I'm so sad.
Mike Merle.
Mike Merles.
Hmm.
It's that the way they've chosen things to be the language that they choose is very specific. Their answer to a lot of sage advice is if it was supposed to do X, it would have said it does X. And so when you look at certain abilities, such as what's the warlock one?
It is Eyes of the Runekeeper.
Eyes of the Runekeeper, which allows you to read any written word.
Yeah, it says any writing. It doesn't actually specify language. It is saying any writing. So that would indicate runes or things that aren't traditionally just a script. Like it includes that kind of stuff. I would even argue it might include arcane sigils and things. You might be able to understand what those do, at least in the abstract.
Right. But that's the point that we're talking about here. So you see an arcane rune and it means evocation or fire. You don't, but you don't necessarily comprehend what it's trying to tell you. Whereas with the spell comprehend language, you have that. It specifically says you can comprehend the writing. You understand what it's trying to tell you. So it was an interesting discussion between the two. And Angela had a short one earlier this week, just to kind of like save it for the show. But this idea that you could read something without comprehending it, and how would you put that across? And we came to Thieves' Cant as our first one. Thieves' Cant can be written. It's a kind of a coded language. But Angela and I have very different experiences with it. One way that I think of it, I think it could be a lot of things. But one way I look at it is, if you've ever seen Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 12, maybe it is, where they pull the Lost in Translation on Matt Damon's character, where they talk in this very funny sort of coded language. I could hear every word they said. I had no clue what they were talking about. Now, in that situation, they weren't talking about anything. They were making that shit up because that's the joke. But the idea is that's how I've always seen Thieves' Cant. Even before I saw that, as soon as I saw that, I went, "Oh, that's Thieves' Cant. That's amazing." That's a segment I'd love to do. Moments that movies like strike you as tangent, as strike you as, oh, that's the thing in that, you know. There's been a lot of movie moments where I've been like, oh yeah, that's that, you know, that exists, that's that thing. But anyway, sorry about that. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I said, oh, that's Thieves' Cant. That's amazing. You're sitting there and you're talking openly around people. Nobody has any clue what you're talking about when you're really talking about whatever. And if you think about it, all of the Ocean's movies are filled with that. Every one of the every time they talk about any of the maneuvers they do in their thieving, those are all coded language, but they sound completely innocuous. So to me, that's Thieves' Cant. But to Angela, it's a little different.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed. I've been watching, and I'm absolutely obsessed with Dale Kingsmill's Monarch's Factory is her channel. Her a little bit about Thieves' Cant. I'm a huge fan of it, and I want to talk about it at some point with that. I just saw we got followed by World Anvil. They just came on. Hey guys.
They just followed us, or they rated.
They just rated. They just rated.
Welcome, guys. We're talking about comprehend languages versus read language versus understand language, because it's all worded differently. And I'm always curious about what the creators, Jeremy and Chris Perkins specifically, Mike Merle's a little bit there, what they were meaning with the different language, with the different points about, you know, reading versus comprehending. Like, you can read any written language or you can comprehend any written language. It's kind of very different wording between an ability and a spell inside of D&D 5e. There's a little more nitty-gritty into the mechanics of things than we usually get into, but this one, I'm specifically about how do you role play that out?
Yeah.
You know, there's some times when you're looking at something, and with Thieves' Cant is the easiest example, but using Thieves' Cant as an idea, it's like, okay, you can read it, you can see all the words, but you don't understand the meaning behind it. But then would comprehend languages allow you to come in and go, oh no, I understand the meaning behind the words. I understand, you know, they're talking about, you know, Jimmy down at the bakery buying a pie, but I really understand they're talking about some dude trying to kill, you know, somebody.
Right. They catch on. They understand the intent behind the language, even if they don't know the nuance of the code. That you could potentially read it as, oh, well, yeah, you understand that their discussion right now is about an illicit activity. They want to hire somebody for a job. The other person is accepting it. There's money being exchanged. You might not understand the exact details, but you know what the intent behind that conversation is. You at least comprehend that much.
But then, for me, the point is that comprehending, you know, so I'm not even sure then that I agree with that 100%, because with comprehend languages, you know, you comprehend the language the way it was meant to be used, not necessarily somebody using it in a way that it's not meant to be. You know, it becomes a whole different thing. But that's where the system gets in the way. Thieves' Cant, in the way that I use Thieves' Cant, they say it's its own language, but it. Hi, Andy. Hi, Whiskey.
So my husband just came home, and he doesn't realize that this is actually what it looks like. So you could have just walked by him and completely not on camera. We're live streaming right now, so hi.
You told me not to close the door.
Bye.
Hi, internet.
Goodbye, internet. Goodbye.
You don't
Andy.
have to move
Goodbye.
it. Okay.
I do have to move it. You crazy, crazy person.
I'm so glad that everyone experiences our. We're quite happy. How are you?
But
that's what happens when he's not playing a charming little dog on D&D.
Yes. What I was saying was, the way the language is used, to me, Thieves' Cant is a language unto itself, but it's a coded language. So no matter what language you're using, whether you're using Halfling or Thieves' Cant or Common or whatever, you're still speaking Thieves' Cant, but you need Thieves' Cant to speak in another language. And that's where it gets a little twisted for me. So for me, if you don't understand a common language with someone, it's very difficult to use Thieves' Cant with them, or it's impossible even.
Okay.
So, but to the spirit of the game, that's not an issue, because it's a language. It's a language they understand. So then does it become a written language? But if you get somebody who's raised by raised in the Underdark who comes up and happens to speak Thieves' Cant. You've got somebody who raised with High Elves and has never met anybody else, and then all of a sudden they come together. They can both speak Thieves' Cant. That's a little weird to me.
Okay. Looks like Chad and you actually agree in chat. He's like, oh shit.
Oh, then I changed my mind. Everything I said was wrong.
Good. I'm glad we agree. That was a very simple discussion.
This is not. I'm okay. This is our final stream. Something's gone terribly wrong in the Matrix.
I mean,
Love you, Chad.
I think this is one of those great things that you can go through the text definition of comprehend, and you can also have it waver a little bit from DM to DM. So I think it really just kind of depends on, honestly, which you want to be sort of consistent, but at the same time, you can use it how you want in the moment. Something might connect, or you could be like, oh, well, language roots, you kind of know a few more things than you would normally in this particular thing. But yeah.
But considering that, and here's why I think Thieves' Cant works, because you and I have discussed how we view common. The only way that common truly works in the world the way that it's intended is common has to be a pidgin language. It has to be,
and I love doing it like that.
It has to be, for it to make sense, it has to be a culmination of, what's the language that we use here, the one that's kind of a pidgin language, with several languages coming together.
A Creole would count as a pidgin language. Has some French, has some Caribbean language in it, has some English in it. But not completely understood by everyone who speaks those individual languages, but they will be able to parse out words, phrases, or basic grammar, things like that. And I've always really enjoyed the idea that common is literally a of course, Chad, pidgin spelled Pidgin, meaning often a language offshoot. Yeah, you could coo the whole time. A language offshoot that's often created whether when you have cultures that are combining, whether it's for trade, that sort of thing. You need people at a dock to be able to communicate with each other, and they're from different places. They might create a sort of middleman language. So the idea that common rose up, not like common is the language of the humans, but that common is the language that all of these disparate cultures put together so that they could communicate effectively with each other. So there's going to be, in the same way that English is not really a pidgin language, but the idea that English has borrowed phrases and words. We have a lot of French offshoots in our language. We have a lot of idioms that are sort of pulled from different languages. Common would have that. Common would have little words that, like, maybe you don't necessarily have to make a language, but you could add flavor to your setting by saying, well, yeah, when people are speaking common, when they're talking about mining and manufacturing things, they're using a lot of dwarvish terms. Or when they're talking about like magic, maybe there's a folk in your setting that are like the arcane casters. A lot of times elves get thrown into that, but maybe there's just a lot of elvish terms that have to do with, alchemy stuff. Like that's where all your magic science terms tend to get borrowed from. I just really love the idea of that blending. And then on that level, you do have the option to say, all right, well, in addition to common, I'm going to make human a language, if you wanted to do that. Because I always felt it was kind of weird and human-centric to be like, common is the thing everybody speaks, and that's what humans speak, because like humans are universal. American. Yeah, it's weird. But this idea that common is just the English, and everybody speaks it, but then the humans also, like, that's their language, is this language everyone speaks.
I think it's just because humans have lost their language at that point.
If that's the way you want to build your setting, that's great.
They're so short-lived in this land of these people who live forever, the elves, dwarves, and etc. Even halflings, I think, are double lifespan. That they're so short-lived in the common races that they their language seems to be lost. They just, when they grew up, they just had to learn these other languages of these people that have been around for a long time.
Okay, you have just sold me on the idea that humans only speak common and not needing to make a human language. If you place your humans in that setting, if you place your humans in a situation where it's, we had to just learn the common parlance because we were going to get left out of everything
naturally,
if we didn't learn how to do
it. I mean, it wasn't a conscious choice. It just naturally happens that their language, that the language that spoke more common. It's like immigrants who come here. It's like the first generation does not usually speak the language very well, but then the next does. They have to. It's just because they're engrossed in it. It just happens, and that's just kind of what happens is being around
school, work, and
where there are dwarves and elves and things. Then all of a sudden, common becomes this idea that we can all talk about across the board, and then people find, common is kind of a great sort of way to focus because it allows us to talk with all the other races as well. But these long-standing races who have the time to teach their children or are highly intelligent these other languages or steeped in tradition like the dwarves, it's like, no, of course we're going to keep our language, but we're also going to use these other languages. Whereas the humans, as they've been written, are the adapters. They're the ones that are like, okay, we'll just use that, no problem, so
Okay, that just made me super happy. I'm 100% down for that interpretation of common and human race, and explicitly setting that, that expectation. I want to have a conversation at some point about about how we've talked about trying to get away from the race model. And what are other ways of that? I know some people are just like, just the term itself is a little charged and unnecessary, especially when you talk about some groups not being compatible for breeding. Like some people can't have children in certain things. It's just a weird thing. I like the idea of folk. That's a big one that I'm starting to try to internalize a little more.
I don't have so here's my thing. I actually, in my world, all of the races can breed together. Not all of them can create half breeds. You just have a dominant gene in one or the other. That's all. So with at least most of the player races, for the most part, that's what you come up with, is that one becomes more of the dominant gene, or it's a 50-50 chance. I mean, just make it easy. There's only certain races allow half breeds, but this can also allow for some variations. Like if you wanted to have an overly tall dwarf, you could do that. My mother was a Goliath, and I'm a little taller. I have a little bit more of a rustic features. I don't have a problem with that personally. But that's why race is okay as a term, because it's one group that we can. Absolutely. I don't have a problem with it. Other people do. And I come from a place of privilege, so I have no problems trying to get rid of it. It's going to be very difficult for my brain because I've been doing this for 20 years.
Andy,
folk doesn't necessarily make sense to me, but I've never really liked the word folk, period. It's just a weird word for me. I don't know why. It's probably some stupid bias in my past. I will get over it, but
if you drop the L, it's easier.
Folk?
Just folk.
Folk? Ferk?
That's not that's dropping and replacing. That's not just dropping. It's folk music, or you're talking to different folk.
Different folk. All right.
But I have I think Andy might have talked to you about it, but we talked a lot about a way to work around PC races that I thought was really interesting. The idea of racial bonuses, if you want, and I swear the new Pathfinder is talking about doing away with race and going with cultural background, or something like that. They're doing something. At least there was talk down the road of doing something a little more unusual, or a little just adapting in a little different direction than doing traditional races. And Andy and I have been talking a lot about heritage. I think Chad's saying. And I think that's really, really neat idea. And Andy and I have a concept, like a build that I might play around with at some point about how to
heritage is replacing race, is what you're saying?
The idea that you can be any race you want, but your innate skills don't have anything to do with the kind of, you're a half orc or you're an elf, that's not where your skills come from. Your skills come from how you were raised and trained and what you were surrounded by. And so your culture is what dictates the kind of things you can do. Versus
okay, but there are some things on the racial charts that are definitely genetic.
Well, I don't know what those are going to be in the
Okay.
new Pathfinder. They might be changing some of
Got
that
it.
stuff up, so it's not like that. But Andy and I talk about that. This is way off the beaten path for language, but we've been talking about the idea of having everybody's unique, even within the D&D subset. You're going to have people that have different skills, different abilities, different innate, resilience. My example was half orcs that like popping back up after you get knocked down for one. It feels like a really oddly specific thing for every single half orc to be capable of doing. Like, what if you had a wizard half orc that's just like, I get bruised when I like bump into my pantry when I walk around.
But what you're talking about there is their constitution. You can have a half orc with a constitution of 8, so that gives them a +2 to a 10. For a half orc, that's insanely low. That's human average for a half orc. That is insanely low for a half orc. So they do get bruised. That doesn't remove the idea that every half orc for generations, the ones that survive are the ones that can get back up. The ones that keep going are the ones that can get back up.
Sure.
In a society of fighters, I see that as a genetic ability. I have no problems with that being something that you would carry with you.
Sure, but in the world building that we were discussing, you would have something more akin to, you could have a human who is just over time trained and like basically a bodybuilder, and they should have the right to have super high carry capacity. So this idea that you could say, okay, I want to play a human, but then look at any of the racial groupings that within reason, and you just pick a different set of racial skills. So it's not about what kind of person you are, it's about, or rather, it's not about what kind of race you are, it's about what kind of person you are. And there can be so much variation within a population that you're allowing people to do that. So a human that goes, okay, I would like to take the Goliath abilities. Like, all right, you've got cold resistance and you have, because you live up in the mountains and you're just a bodybuilder dude. So you get that stuff. The idea of allowing a little bit more variation within the race choices, is an idea that we're still kicking the tires on to see how that would play out. But the idea is to allow people, that's the idea of allowing people to play literally whatever the heck they want, however the heck they want. If they don't want to necessarily be like, I want to be a magic user or I want to be an archer, well, you better play elf because that's what's in the book. It's like, no, let them play with however the configuration they want to, if that's the world you want to.
That anyway, but
sure.
If you're a min-maxer, sure, that's the way you want to go. But if you're not concerned too much about min-maxing, you've got a good DM, it shouldn't matter what you play in the book as is. I'm not opposed to the idea of somebody having an anomaly here and there that, they're heroes. That's the point. You think of John Henry, it's like he was an anomaly. He's the hero. He's a folk hero because he was an anomaly. He had this huge strength. And I don't have a problem with that. And we could, you could tweak races all day long. I like the idea of some of that kind of being in, but that does not change the idea that a race could be have a predisposition. Oh no,
I'm not saying doing this because the old way is wrong. It's just an alternative option. The idea that basically
what I'm saying though is that if there is nothing to differentiate the races other than their look, then they've lost all their culture. They've lost everything they are.
Depends on the game you're
playing. So
playing.
if you remove all of that, I guess.
I'm talking about like completely removing it from the Forgotten Realms style thing, just doing something completely different. That's all. I'm still workshopping it. It's not. This isn't the completely. Sure. This was not even something I was. No. It's partially inspired by the Pathfinders doing a heritage thing. This whole time I've been talking about the thing I've been thinking of just playing around with.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought we were talking about Pathfinder things specifically.
No.
I still, I'd love to hear more about it. My thing is that if every race can have everything, then no race has anything. They don't become special in any way at that.
Right. That is for a character
For
creation
PC,
system.
I have no problems.
Yeah, this is
But you're
is
talking in
for
general.
this was for character creation. This was for PCs.
Oh, okay.
This was for
Sure.
letting people not feel if you're playing a game where people don't want to feel constrained by because we've had people come to us before that are like, I want to play something that is so off the beaten path what the book says. Yeah, like I want to play. Let me find a good example of like I want to play a badger person. We don't have a badger person that you can play, but you just pick whatever you want for the character. It's just about like letting them play out whatever they want. If you're playing sort of a more loose with the rules kind of game.
So I have and the badger person's an interesting thought. I have two options for that. One, we already have a race in our game that's called the Feroce. You could easily just reskin that, maybe make one or two tweaks. But also, you have an amazing little PDF you found somewhere that somebody broke down all the racial abilities and gave them point values. Now, I don't agree with all the point values. But the idea is with that, you could easily have people swap out racial traits. Like, I want to give this up, but I want to gain that. Mm-hmm. And as long as the point values about match, it should be still fairly well balanced, as long as they're not doing it for a min-maxing reason.
Yeah, I just looked it up. James Musicus, I have his homebrew site. I will put it in the chat. He has some stuff about doing class homebrews and race homebrews, and he's done it in sort of a point buy system that how to balance things out. And he's also gone through the existing races and classes and scored them so that you can compare if you want to try to balance things out for what's okay, what's already existing. So and that's how we used to build our Veil races. I was
going to say, we use that system to build the Veil races. Again, does it come out perfect? No. We have tweaked the Veil races a little bit since then. So technically, by that chart, I believe the chitin are a little bit higher point value than anyone else. But after looking at them, it was like in actual play, they were not that powerful. We
gave them some fun things. Yeah,
we gave them some fun things, but in the end, they're okay.
We gave them
their armor.
The strength is their armor. We gave them the ability to. We basically gave them the first level or one of the later level barbarian totem abilities, the flying ability, basically saying that you jump in the air, 30-foot fly speed, you have to land on something at the end of that movement or you start falling.
It's the barbarian hawk ability, I believe it is. The hawk
eagle.
Totem.
I think it's eagle.
Eagle.
But the idea that, we've talked about, I've talked about this before, that the barbarian, all their really intense stuff happens really early on in the totem. And then the other stuff sort of seems like, oh, that's fun. I guess that's okay. But like the meat of it is at the beginning. Like the first level you take in totem gives you that complete resistance or a huge carrying capacity. Like you get all that stuff right at the front, and then all the other stuff kind of seems like gravy.
All that being said, though, that fly ability is amazing. There's been a lot of amazing. I mean, I was like, okay, let's just go ahead. They want a flight ability. I didn't want to give them flying. That's a huge point. But when you look at Aarakocra, they have flying and not much else. But I didn't want to do that to the chitin. But they're like, oh, we want to have some sort of flight. I'm like, well, this idea is they've outgrown the need to fly like that,
and they're way too big.
They're just way too big. It's just not, But this idea they can kind of flutter around or like get a little bit up and go for a little bit.
And the things
that Heather has done with that has been really good. Like this ability of like falling damage is completely negated, obviously, because you can just fly that last few seconds. Like, it makes sense. It's
I just love the Surrenders game shit she does. She's like, oh well, I'm just gonna run on the wall because climb speed and a glide's gonna jump over the thing and hit the wall next to it and then fight from there, which is awesome and such a fun dynamic way of using the environment. I'm just so happy that we did that with the chitin. They were really, really fun.
As I did, you walk on the walls and flutter and fly. You don't have to fly down to the ground. You just have to land on something. You can literally land on anything.
Yeah.
You can land on the ceiling.
Oh, and so just as a little bit of context for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, the chitin are one of the custom races we play in Countless Heroes in our setting of Veil, and they are just like giant iridescent beetles. And so we've given them a couple of different abilities. One of them has like some of the sub races that we've made for the chitin have like sort of a fun little one-off ability that they have, and so the warrior cast that our PC Soxy is part of gets this glide ability that's an offshoot of the barbarian flight. But yeah, that was so off the beaten path, but fun. Do you want to go to the next thing, or do you want to have anything else you want to say about reading versus comprehension?
That was a great discussion.
All right, so PC Farm Upstate. Sometimes when a PC is played for a very long time, they need to go rest, and you have to take them to the farm upstate. And we want to talk a little bit about what needs to happen when, say, a player comes to you and decides they want to retire, or maybe something in the game necessitates needing to retire a character, whether in the player's opinion or in the DM's opinion. Do we just want to talk about why someone might want to retire a character?
Well, let's talk about there's acceptable reasons to retire a character, and there's unacceptable reasons to retire a character, in my opinion. The acceptable reasons are the character is a detriment to the game, either decided by the DM or by the player. There's something going wrong with the character in the game, and it is interfering in some way with other people's enjoyment. The other thing is that the player, it is interfering with their enjoyment, that the character has been possibly hurt in a way that they now can no longer see that character in the light that they enjoy playing them, that they feel it's a slog, that they have to drag themselves to the table every week. Those are good reasons to walk away from that character. Bad reasons to walk away from that character is, I just got this new Splat book and I want to play this. I want to play X now, or I want to play Y now. To me, that is a poor reason to decide to change a character. Now, if the player, and I've had players that have just always wanted to constantly change. I used to be a player that liked to change a lot because I could never really decide on what I wanted to do. But I went into my first AD&D game, and they were very specific that you could not change characters unless you died. Well, I was the first heavy role player that they had in that group. Evidently, everybody else was mostly min-maxers and dungeon crawlers, and I didn't know that going into it. But my character, after about 3 levels, so about 8 or 9 sessions, about a month's worth of, or a year's worth of play, for the first time in her life as a wood elf, had come across other wood elves and fell in love with the culture. And we did a lot of heavy role play with the group. And I went to the DM afterwards and I said, I don't see her wanting to leave. I don't see this happening. I mean, I want to keep playing her, but she wouldn't leave. She just found her people. And he said, well, that's okay. We can change your character. And evidently, the guy who they made the rule about not allowing to change characters anymore threw a big hissy fit because I was changing my character and I hadn't died. And the DM kind of had to smack him down and says, no, he's changing for roleplay reasons. And that's the other acceptable way. Is if you come to me and you go, my character, this is it. This character is no longer going to stay. This character has found something better than the adventuring life that they are on. And I didn't know about the character up front. I had no idea that she was looking for her family. But it came, we'd run into other elves and dwarves and seen all this culture and this beauty and went, well, where's my people? Where do I belong? And then having found that, it was decided to change. So those are good reasons to change, in my opinion.
Yeah. And without going into too much detail, we've had a few reasons why we have our players. Happened. Yeah, those are examples drawn directly
all
from.
All of those happen in the past 20 weeks,
which has been a fabulous kind of crash course into character transition. I think that it also depends a little bit on the nature of the campaign you're running. If you're doing something a little more loosey-goosey, then I think you can get away with more frequent character flipping. If you're just trying to sort of explore the breadth of possibilities and your storyline is not such that you're building it for those characters, then you could probably get away with doing that a little more often. But I mean, it's been our experience that you're catering your story to the characters that your players are bringing to the table. So you're trying to make sure that they are getting something that directly engages with them. And hopefully you get that stuff done before someone decides they want to trade out. And hopefully you're engaging them enough they don't want to trade out. But
right.
It'll happen.
One of my
sometimes.
previous DMs decided that they were going to run the world's longest hallways. I mean, world's longest dungeon, which was a splat book that was put out that was this thick. I shit you not, and came with 16 maps. And these maps were not normal size. These maps were like squares were like that big. It was literally as a normal a grid map put out by Chessex, the big one, 32-inch one. Each one of those 16 maps was 4 of those maps, I think. It might have been 8. The point is, it was fucking huge. We went into that with 2 backup characters pre-made because you get locked in this dungeon and you have to live in this dungeon till level 20. And that's basically it. And they're like, no. You need to have this. Literally, the first map is just hallways after hallways connecting and intertwining. Makes no sense, and most of them are trapped for first level characters with very high level traps. There was no surviving if you just accidentally stepped on one. It was ridiculous. It was stupid. It was sort of fun. We gave up after 2 or 3 maps, but it just kept going on and on for a very long time. Evidently later on there's a lot of really fun stuff, but back in the beginning it was not that much fun. Anyway, but the point is that's a game where you go in, you go, okay, yeah, we're going to role play, we're going to get to know each other, but we're also going to have some backup characters for other people wandering through this dungeon because that's what you have to do.
Okay, now I want to run a game. I want to run a game that takes place in a dungeon, but the dungeon is your world. So there's going to be little, hovels where people live. There's going to be little shops where someone's like, "Hey, dude, we're all stuck in here. I might as well sell what I have." Or like little skeleton villages.
I think there's a whole city inside, a little mini village inside of the dungeon somewhere. Because nobody could figure out how to get out. It's huge.
Yeah, I just want like a little skeleton village. I just live here.
Anyway, so that is a good example of a game where you don't need to necessarily a great example. I mean, that's an extreme example, but yeah.
Fennec, I'm imagining the happiest Dark Souls ever. But yes, Dark Souls, but D&D. Everyone's stuck in this dungeon together.
So but the big thing I was going to say was one of the things. The reason why I want to bring this up is because I just had to change one of my rules. Normally in a game, if somebody leaves like that, I have no problems with them deciding to come back with that character later. But I just had to change that rule because with 16 players, I've already had 2 had to leave, and one person said they kind of needed a break. And I was like, okay, but the problem is if that person leaves, I need them to be gone because I can no longer, having already had to do that for 2 players and then a third, and now possibly a fourth, I can no longer try to keep the game relevant for all the characters that are leaving just on the off chance they might come back. And
sure, you're dancing a very complicated bit of choreography here where you have things planned down the road and you have so the goal then becomes working on making sure that the story is as engaging for those players as possible so that they don't want to leave, but then also finding that time to share with everybody else who's completely fine with the characters they're currently playing.
Exactly.
Thank you for our 400th follower.
Oh, who's our 400th follower?
Sure, Jokapwai. I don't know if that's a full word or if there's some like pieces, but thank you so much for the follow. You are our 400th follow, which I don't have a present for you, but hooray! Thank you. Some confetti went off in my brain. Hooray.
How is it different than every other day?
This stuff was glittery confetti.
Oh, that's a rarity. That's going to be there forever now.
Yep, all on the inside of my skull. Oh,
just lighting it.
You ever have that sensation when you
open your brain up later, like, what is going on in here?
When you like think about bugs for too long and then your skin starts crawling, that's happening on the inside of my skull right now.
Anyway, did we actually get to a point here yet? I don't.
Okay, so we talked about the reasons that some people might want to retire a character.
Sure.
We're doing like the who, what, where, why of this. What about how to transition somebody out of a character? Do you have any particular? I mean, there are some. They might seem obvious to us, but I wonder if maybe breaking down a little bit what that process feels like.
Find the moment. Normally, I want people to stay till the end of an arc. I want them to be some sort of completion. I want them to get that point. I don't want them to just walk away. I don't want them to be like, I'm done. Something needs to have happened. There needs to be a reason why that character wants to leave. And if something has already happened, maybe it was a while ago, let them have some sort of confrontation, not necessarily like PvP level, but let them sit and have that moment, even if it's with another people. Like, I can't deal with this person anymore. I can't deal with this living, day to day, possibly dying every day. Let them sit down and have that moment and say goodbye. I don't always give the characters opportunity to say goodbye either. Sometimes it just makes sense. It's like you're standing, give them a situation to leave. I've had one be like, here's the portal. This is your chance. Are you going or not? Your friends are not here. And she wrote a note real quick, and that's it. That's all they got. So they left a note behind and jumped through the portal, which the note, I'm not sure was ever even found by the PCs. But the PCs out of character heard it all, obviously. So they still knew it was happening. But in character, I don't think they found out. So there's a lot of opportunity, but give them that moment, give them that opportunity. That's what I do. Because I want them to not regret the idea that they didn't have some sort of opportunity to say goodbye. Now, that being said, there are situations where I don't always let NPC say goodbye, but that's and I'm just wanting to switch. But that's only usually when there's been an issue with a PC that is not well taken by the other players, or if there's some sort of conflict that is just too difficult to resolve in game, that it would just be better if we just moved on. In those situations, I go, it's just time to move on. Let's just, do the new thing, get the new person introduced. Let's get to something good and positive. But that's usually when there's an out of character conflict, not necessarily an in character conflict.
I've had a character, or I've had a player that has wanted to swap characters or do something different, and I'm a big proponent of strong collaboration, and you are too. Like I said, this feels obvious, but just say I'm a strong proponent of collaborating between the DM and the player to figure out the best situation to, one, remove them, but two, also to transition into this new character and why they're around, why they're joining this group. The player, and this was in a Dresden Files Fate game that I ran. The player was just getting really frustrated, and he felt like he wasn't getting a lot of experience as his character. He's just, everyone's shutting down my ideas, and I don't feel like he's doing anything. And my he was sort of it was kind of like a warlocky thing. He had a patron, and his relationship to his patron wasn't really great, and he was frustrated. I wasn't running that particular, I was co-DMing with somebody, and the way that he was running it with his character, the patron just didn't have the relationship he thought he had with this god that he worshipped. And so one of the things that we did to try to we basically respect his whole character. We said, all right, well, you like the character, you just don't like how it's playing right now. Well, why don't we do something different? So we had the game ended before we actually ended up doing this, but came up with the whole plan that we were going to turn him into a werewolf. And then he was completely stripping everything else away, and he was going to, essentially a werewolf, a were-dog. And one of the PCs, one of my DM NPC that I played was also a were-dog. And so that was going to be a new facet of his and her relationship was going to be, all right, you're one of these now. I got to teach you how to be this. And so it was basically crafting a whole new storyline for the same character by letting something very dramatic change his character model. And that was one way that we sort of fixed it. Rather than him cutting and running with a character and just bringing someone new in, we let him keep his character and just did something, gave him a storyline that let him completely respec his character. So he felt like it was a new thing for him to do, but he didn't feel like he was behind everybody else because he was a brand new person trying to get to know everybody. He just got to have a new path in his life. So that's how we sort of worked on retiring a character build rather than just a character.
I like it.
But I think in general, nothing intrinsically wrong with someone feeling like they want to swap characters. And like you had listed, there's a lot of reasons why someone might want to, whether that's in or out of game. It's just needing to find if people care about that, or if that's something you care about, finding out how to get that transition to be as smooth as possible and feel maybe not earned, but feel like it fits with the flow of your game and doesn't necessarily bring attention to itself that this person got pissed and didn't want to play this character anymore. Right. Finding a story beat, like you'd said, find a beat where that fits. That can really reinforce everybody's buy into the game. Oddly enough, I think we experienced that a little bit in Countless. Not to like take Tessa's story from her, but she's explained it on Countless Chronicles, the recap show before, that Pesk, her lizardfolk cleric, when everything went down in our main story arc and like everything came to a head and there was a lot of conflict and the rebellion was blowing up, and she kind of came to this conclusion that Pesk didn't want to be there anymore. It felt like she had a lot of her idealism ripped from her, and that was very traumatic for her. And that was an interesting growth moment for the character, even though it was an exit for her. But I personally feel like that did a lot to the group. I think that being the reason that somebody left, I think that leaves scars on the people left behind. And so I think there was some interesting storytelling potential when she decided, the morality of what's going on here, I'm not okay with, and I have to be gone. I have to do something for me now. I think even if it wasn't overtly talked about, I think it does require that the other characters do a little bit of self-assessment about, okay, Pesk was awesome and she couldn't handle this. Can I handle this? Is this something I want to be a part of? Like, I think there was a lot of introspection that had to happen when one of our good friends decided to just cut and run.
And that wasn't the end of Arc 1. We also lost Sildana at that time.
Yes,
who
from an even more traumatic situation. Yeah,
absolutely. From a very different perspective, Sildana in general didn't have a problem with what was going on around. It was okay with the rebellion and basics, but when it came down to having to pull the trigger, literally themselves, and be the one to make the hard decision, Sildana broke, and Sildana needed to go away for a while. And Sildana being so intrinsic to that, and Gabby, and knowing personally and having talked to Gabby several times about how I was pushing her character and affecting not only her character but her in real life, and making sure that we were okay after every session, literally making sure that everything was okay with them. I knew how much it was affecting Gabby in real life, and I knew that a break was necessary. So I had no problems granting that. But it becomes an issue after a while when in a game like mine, where it's about a lot of it's about mental torture and how what you think is not what you think. It's almost like
challenging moral situations.
Well, and the entire game feels like I'm gaslighting you like constantly. And it just feels like I'm like, here's what A and B are. Sure, that's what they are. And then later you find out, oh no, it was actually B and A, or now there's a C, and all these things that, like I tell you that things are one way and then they turn out not to be that way. It feels bad. Now, granted, it's the perspectives of each of those PCs in general, but being the only person that knows the whole story, that's what it feels like. And I'm starting to realize that's why it feels like I'm hurting you, but that's what storytellers do. The idea is that they want to they're trying to tell a story, and misleading is a powerful tool in that toolbox.
Well, and a lot of the NPCs that we deal with in the game have very different morality than what we do, and have very different perspectives on let me see if I can say this, what they do means. Like the importance of everything that they do, the implications of everything they do, the morality of it. They have different opinions on that. And so when we are interacting, we're not necessarily all interacting on an even playing field with these characters. They're not being upfront, or their worldview is just so vastly skewed from ours that it can be very hard to interpret what's going on. We make a lot of assumptions and find later that that's not what's happening.
I try to explore in a lot of these characters. I try to explore the mistakes I've made in life, the ones I'm familiar with, because you write what you know, and not sharing information that was kind of important and crucial was a mistake I've made many times in my life. Going, I really should tell this person this, but I'm scared or I don't want to. What if they don't like me anymore? All of those thoughts. That's Pinball right there. Pinball had a lot of information that he could have shared. It wasn't Pinball that told you guys the truth. It was Jastra, and Jastra was shat on for it. And that's what Pinball was afraid of. That moment, what happened to Jastra after she shared that information, being left in front of the castle, abandoned by all of her friends because she dared to tell the truth and try to fix the mistake she made, is exactly why Pinball didn't tell you guys all the whole truth. And it was so funny to see it play out like that when the group as a whole is like, you know, we have this, it seems like a lot feel like, oh, we're superior to a lot of these people because we would never do these things and we would never act like this. But you did. A lot of the players in that moment, even the person that Jasper was sleeping with, left and turned their back on her because she revealed the truth, not realizing how hard that must have been for her in the moment, only then realizing it later. It was hard for me too to finally reveal that, and I was not sure which of the three were going to do it. And I know we're talking a lot about the game that many people may not have seen. I apologize, but this idea that I try to play the NPCs the way that I look at the world sometimes, and how things can be difficult, and different NPCs have different abilities. There's some NPCs I have in this world that would have been like, yeah, we did it, screw you, you know. And that would have been them, and like, yeah, we did this, we screwed this, we did this, yeah, here's all the information. But these people were trying to be their friends, and they, all three of them, if you look at it, are friends in very different ways, you know. They all are trying to become, you know, so when you have NPCs in similar situations, that's kind of what I try to look at there. Anyway, that was a complete tangent. I apologize.
Every single one of these have had complete tangents. It's okay. I think there's more to talk about PC, let's call it PC transition, for lack of a better phrase, moving on to a different PC. But I think I want to think about it a little bit more. What sort of basic outline of we've talked about the reasons for why someone might want to swap out, techniques for swapping people out, ways of making that transition feel smooth. And then I think we've talked a little bit about the warning signs. Like, you can tell when someone's hitting the breaking point, maybe facilitating them, making them not feel like they're trapped in a situation that they don't want to be in. If you are capable, if you can swap a PC and you're okay with people doing that, make sure they know that's an option so that they don't feel trapped and like the game, like don't let them feel like the game is the problem if it doesn't have to be. If the problem is just what they're playing and what they're feeling like they're stuck playing, you can, as a DM, one of your jobs is to help your players have fun. So if that helps them, see what you can do.
Try to resolve whatever issue they're having first. A lot of times what I found is the issue is PC related. Like, my PC doesn't get along with this PC. And it become interpersonal. Absolutely. One of the things I've done to resolve that is I have in our game, which is 10 sessions in 2 weeks, but I have a 2-week rule. You know, if there is an inter-party conflict, or if we introduce a new PC and let's say they have a bias against half-orcs, let's say.
Weird. That's such a weird example. The Conjure. It's almost like one of us experienced the shitty end of that. I'm fine. I promise.
So let's say they're racist against half-orcs. My rule is you have 2 weeks to fix that, which is about 4 sessions for them to play. So about a month's worth in a normal game. So without all the extra players that I have. So in four sessions, you need to resolve that with every half-orc in the party. You don't have to stop being racist against most half-orcs, but you have to be okay with these half-orcs. And that is a sort of a meta conversation. And it's a great way to weed out problem players, because if a player goes, well, that's not what my guy would do, that is a very obvious, maybe overstated, my guy syndrome. And we've talked a little bit about My Guide Syndrome here and there. The idea, but the My Guide Syndrome, the basic idea is that if your character, if you say this is what my guy would do, and it is because you're trying to justify doing something horrible that's going to screw up the game and or party, you're not playing D&D. You're just being a jerk. That's how I look at it. My Guy Syndrome is not is.
And that's different than hijinks. That's different than hijinks. Foolish hijinks is my character does something goofy that fucks up a plan. That's not the same thing.
That's different.
As repeated just carpet bombing.
I'm making other players uncomfortable or hurt is very different than I'm screwing up a plan or making the other characters uncomfortable or hurt. It's okay to make characters uncomfortable and hurt. It is never okay to hurt or make uncomfortable the other players. And that's when the issue needs to come in. And but if you're playing in a game where everyone is playing one type of game and you want to play a different kind of game, creating a character just to try to force that is not acceptable. And that's the type of situation where you need to kind of watch for. Those are good reasons to swap out characters too. But my point is that as a meta rule you have 2 weeks to resolve that conflict. Now, if you've been watching Countless Heroes, you may have seen there's been some that have gone beyond that because I didn't catch them right away because I have a lot going on. But now those things are going to be resolved and you'll see some resolutions of those fairly quickly. So that's my rule. You have 2 weeks or about 4 sessions that you play in. Every player plays about twice a week. So you have 4 sessions to resolve that conflict and move on, especially if it's PvP. If it's PvE, PvE, other NPC, don't care. But when you are upset at other PC or there's something going on between PCs, it should be resolved within 4 sessions. You need to talk about it. You need to resolve it. You need to move on. You need to be friends again. That needs to happen. If it can't happen, then something else we need to look at what else we can do.
Yeah. Unless I would say the only suggestion or the only situations that I would say that's not necessarily required. Again, all of this comes with the caveat. In my game, ... how I run the game, ... there are going to be games, there are going to be campaigns where interparty conflict is going to work for you and not work against you. We tend to play games where we want the heroes to be they're together because they're friends, or they're together because of some very fundamental bond they have with each other. And so we don't want there to be those sort of sharp edges in their relationships that are going to cause strife.
Rough edges.
Sure. Just not full-on lines between them. There could certainly, not that I have an explicit example right now, but there could certainly be a campaign where you have, heck, you could run a campaign with like 2 characters. One of them's a superhero, one of them's a supervillain, but they got to work together to do stuff. They could hate each other and really try to sabotage each other, but that could be the premise of the game. But once again, this all comes back to session 0. Make sure you all set expectations for the kind of game you want to run. And if you want to run a game that everyone's a friend, you've got to say that to your players and make sure everybody's on board with that.
In those situations, the players probably are very into the idea and they are playing off of it and enjoying their out-of-character banter.
But that's everybody on the same page with each other.
Yes, everyone on the same page. When you stop having those out-of-character experiences and if you're having issues in character and one of the players then comes to the DM going, I don't know what's wrong, I can't fix this, that's when you start having the issue. In the end, what really should happen is if you're ever going to do any PvP in-game or you're going to have those kind of conflicts, you should talk to the other player first and be like, look, this is where my character's feeling. Is this something that's okay to do in-game? It does not remove any of the enjoyment of the actual happenings. And then you're sure that both of you, and then you go to the DM, double check with them. Once all 3 people are on the same page and it's the type of story you want to tell that story.
Yeah. I mean, just to pluck something from one of our shows, in Shenanigans, I had that conversation with Kyle, who plays Merrick. He's a thief. He's from a mobster family. And my character is very on the level in terms of her intention of, I want to get our mission done because we're working for a group that hired us and I want to get this done for them. And I had an upfront conversation with Kyle at one point that said, my character, Adelaide, is a little wary of your character, and I don't, she's gonna call him on his shit if he tries to double cross us. And Kyle overtly told me he's not going to screw you over on this mission. He doesn't believe in once you make a deal with somebody, you're going to follow through with it. So I could have spent the whole session, multiple sessions in this storyline thinking, all right, Adelaide's got to be on edge because she doesn't trust Merrick. But Kyle was like, no, I promise you can relax on that. That is not a stressor or a tension point we need to play out because it doesn't exist. So having a bit of a meta conversation with the other player so that I could focus on having more fun in those moments. I knew I could play around with him, and we had a conversation in the game between our characters that sort of cleared the air a little bit in that way. And it was a really good character building moment. But if you need to have that meta conversation with another player, that can be very valuable because who knows, you could turn that into the role-playing moment that solves or at least resolves a little bit of that tension, and that can be really good character and bonding for the characters.
Yeah. Don't get so stuck in your PC's head that you cannot change your ideas.
Yeah, or that you can't talk to people about them.
Exactly.
Because the idea of not metagaming. Yeah. So
cool. We are at item 3, and we have half an hour left.
I'm excited about item 3, so I'm down for this.
No, this is item 3. Item 4 is challenge time.
I'm excited about challenge.
My point is, you were like, we're totally going to get through this list.
Nope, we're not. We're back to old habits. It's not the new year yet. Our resolution hasn't. Our resolutions haven't. Maybe our new resolution needs to be have the number of topics that we put on our session plan.
No, because we've gotten through them a couple of times.
And I like the idea of following up with these later. Like, sure. All right, we're going to take the bottom 3 and we'll move them back to the top. All right, so challenge. Our challenge today for this week, we will have the dance party, Samurai, I promise. That's just default at the end. I always kick it up on the list.
Where were you? We had the dance party. We opened with a dance.
We have 2 full dance parties per episode. So my challenge was to build a basic character off a monstrous playable race, which normally probably just includes anything in Volo's guide, whether that's the making a custom monstrous race or any of the ones they actually have stat blocks for. So monstrous race and a class pairing, something fun, a character that you think would be really interesting to play, and just see what comes of it. As the person who challenged it, Logan, would you like to go first?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, so my character that I built is a minotaur, a female minotaur druid. I really liked this idea of and it was a purely visual thing that inspired this. I liked this idea of a druid, or the minotaurs, the idea that it's like a tribe of minotaurs, and the females don't have as big of a horn as the males do. It'd be like they have little horns, and that she's grown these thorns in the shape of giant minotaur horns that she has on her head. I just really love this visual. And I came up with this whole thing that she's a grasslands circle of the land druid. So it's like pasture. She's a cow, and they live in a cornfield maze. and she had a southern accent. I'm like, oh my god, I made a cowgirl, like a literal cowgirl. But I just really like this idea of a druid spellcaster minotaur. I think minotaurs often are put into these sort of like brutish roles, and I like this idea of this character who gets a lot of I love this idea. It'd be an excuse for me to do a southern like rancher accent, because she's just a cowgirl from this really nice little cornfield maze. I don't know. I just really like the horn idea and playing around with that. So yes.
So I came up with one of my first ones was a Luxodon rogue. This idea that this gigantic elephant creature sneaking around, just like sneak, no
one sees the elephant in this room.
Yeah, exactly. The pun game would be very strong. But I also like the idea of like being not very charismatic, just not very socially adept, and just really being really good at the sneaking, at the lock picking with these gigantic paws, and I love the concept of it.
Logan, you
acrobatics.
wouldn't use your paws, you'd use your trunk to pick locks.
Of course, sorry, of course. But the other one I came up with was this weird concept of this turtle sorcerer. This turtle that, and the turtles are not at all slower than any other race or anything, but everyone plays them like them. I think it's hilarious. And then all of a sudden the fireball just erupts. Like just shocked by all the abilities that it has, and not understanding where it comes from, and it just kind of innately happens around them. I just thought that was kind of an interesting concept.
Yes. No, I really enjoy that. I hadn't thought about a class for it, but I really wanted to come up with something for the Yuan-Ti. I think they're potentially pretty fun. I could. It depends on what you have mixed up.
I've created a couple of Yuan-Ti. It's tough to get them in anywhere because their background is so rigid and so evil. It's just hard to kind of stick them in anywhere. I was thinking a Tabaxi that likes to swim would be fun. Like a really good athletic swimming Tabaxi. I don't know. I had a lot of weird ones out there.
I did think about
heights.
Oh no! A penguin Aarakocra that you give him a swim speed instead of a fly speed would be pretty fun.
That's later. We're not talking about that now.
Oh damn it! Well, it's a preview for a later subject. But I also came up with a hobgoblin wizard, which so like a strategist, like a macro strategist, someone who plays everything they do, they play it as if it's like a strategy game. I think that would be fun.
Yeah. So tell us what your favorite race class combinations are for the monstrous races, playable races. Heck
yeah.
And I am going to take the next challenge since I came up with it. We talked about it already.
Do it.
But I came up with it. So I'm going to take this one another step further, and I want us to come up with our favorite monster race combination and what we think might be fun to play, not playable race. So anything goes, anything from the monster manual goes. Or any of the books, any of the monsters at all. So
if you need an example, I have an example just off the top of my head that I probably won't go with. Gelatinous cube assassin.
I think that's amazing.
You just sit in a room and wait. It's a clear gelatinous cube. They just sit in a room and wait for people to accidentally walk into the closet, and then they eat them.
How do you accidentally walk into a closet?
It's dark. Well, no, you accidentally walk into the cube that's in the closet. Like it is taking up the entirety of the closet. It's a walk-in.
A 10 by 10 walk-in closet. All right. So tell us what your favorite, what you think would be a very unique monster and class combination.
Yes.
Either here in the chat or on our Twitter. You can add us at Discover RPG Show and share that with us. And maybe next week we'll pick out a couple and we will share them here from different people who tweet
Very
at
true.
us.
If you want, let's make up a hashtag. If you want to use a hashtag for it, you can call it Discover RPG Challenge. Because then we'll just look through and we can find those. But you can also ping us. I'll put a DRPG challenge. I will put a post up on our Twitch prompting people for ideas, so you guys can comment. Yeah.
And we'll take a couple of our favorites and we'll share them on next week's show, along with a shout out to the people that shared them.
Sounds perfect. I love my cowgirl, and I will one day play her.
I think, I'm looking forward to that one. All right, light up the forge, Angela. Tell us a little bit about our last week of the
World Ember.
Emberween.
Emberween.
It's not Emberween.
World Ember. So World Anvil is running their writing challenge for the month of December. We are on the 26th of December, and it runs till the 31st. we are, as Nerdsmith, specifically at Countless Heroes, multiple members of our team, our scribe team, are participating. We have at least 2 of us who have hit the 10,000 word mark and exceeded it. And we are super excited. There are a bunch of, if you're somebody who likes to cram a lot of work, like you're a NaNoWriMo person, National Novel Writing Month person, who starts with a week to go to write your 50,000 word novel. If you like to do that, you can, secondhand. Should I just post something to World Anvil? I can just post to the actual website. Anyway, we are currently working on a few articles, and I've wrapped a big article, at least the basics of it, for the Gods of Vale, our big pantheon system that we've created as a means of making something a little bit more unique to a D&D setting. We have a nice polytheistic setting that we use, and I'm very proud of it so far. I will probably be adding more images. We're talking about whether we're going to have some artists work on the symbology for the gods, so we have their actual symbols up there, and I'd like to put those up when we have at least drafts of them. But I'll put a link in the chat to our Gods of Vale, and not to plug it, but there are contests for articles. So if anybody goes to the link that I put in the chat and is already on World Anvil, if you could like the article, because I'd love to be I'd love to throw my hat in the ring as a potential contender for the, I believe it's a tradition or a religion article.
Also, what about the Goa article? Are we going to put that out there as well?
I'm still working on the Goa article. Okay. I will get it done this week, and so that will also be out there. That will have a people or ethnicity or race. I'm trying to remember what the article type is. Oh. So yeah, I'm super proud of that article. I'm really excited to continue working in World Anvil. This month has been a really fun sort of crash course in how to use it. We've also been putting a ton of episode summaries up. We're going to start using that exclusively, and so if you go onto our channel, you can find us. We have a fun little vanity URL, nerdsmith.org/ch World Anvil will take you to our whole World of Vale area. And we've got a bunch of the episode summaries. So if you want to catch up on what's been going on for the last couple weeks in game, you can find those there. Those are going to be, I'm really happy with how those articles are coming out. The episodes, the plot summary articles. But those will always be coming out. Like, those are just going to be constantly churned out as Heather and I work on them.
Perfect. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. So check out worldanvil.com. They are amazing. They're good friends of the network. And we love them very much. And Secondhand Samurai's out there, and he is a part of their group. He works for World Anvil, and he's amazing too. And yes, Secondhand, there are some rough edges to World Anvil, but it is still such a comprehensive system that there is no comparison.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm super happy with it.
Rough edges are so minor. I used to be a part of an MLM, a multi-level marketing scheme, and they had they always had this philosophy, and I actually took this for the rest of my life. They say, make a mess and clean it up later. So basically it's do a ton of work, just do the work, get it all out there, and then you can hone it, you can make it look better, nicer later. And that's exactly what World Anvil did, and that's why they're so successful. They went, we're just going to put all of the functionality in. It's not going to be perfect, but all the functionality is going to be there, and then we're going to keep adding functionality and keep improving it, and then we'll hone it, we'll make it look nice later, and we'll make it work perfectly and shave off those rough edges later. And that's what they're doing, and it's amazing. And that's what we're doing with Nerdsmith. That was our goal there too. We made a mess this year, and we're going to work on cleaning it up next year. So,
or just make more messes. Either way.
Well, we'll make nicer messes.
There you go.
Anyway, worldanvil.com. Light up the forge.
Woo! Okay, so
We got
our
20
next
minutes left.
we got to another one. All right, so we have gotten to Taming of the Brew, where we talk about Samurai new payment system. Logan, you want to do a really, really quick update? We're working on it.
The new
It's getting
payment
there.
system is in testing today. It's in final testing. We ran into a major issue with the website. This is for our personal
For Nerdsmith
the
subscription
Nerdsmith
service.
management subscription service. We ran into a major issue with the website where we had a couple of plugins giving us some major functionality run into a conflict with our server. I am currently working with both the server and these companies' tech supports, which of course were closed for the last 48 hours, in trying to get them resolved. I think it's just going to mean less functionality right now, but the membership system itself is running and functional right now in the back end, and the front end has been fully set up. So I've got 2 different people that are testing it today. Once the tests are done, if everything goes right, it will go live tonight or tomorrow, and we'll have our brand new membership system, which means that everything will be automatic from here on out. So when somebody signs up, they'll immediately get access to the bonus content, and they'll have access to all the extra things on the server, and they start supporting the companies immediately. Also, it means a simpler system in the back end, and less math for us to have to do to split up things with the creators. The creators are actually seeing more money each this way as well, because we're having to do less work. So we gave them, each of the creators, the extra more of the money there. So it works out really well for everybody involved to do it this way. And on top of that, of course, the network got its first sponsor. So all of that is happening this week. So it's been a very good week for the network. But yes, it will be going up tonight or tomorrow. And I will poke you directly as soon as it's up and running, so you can sign up there and then cancel your other subscription. That'll be part of the instructions, because through the PayPal system, we'll no longer be using that. It'll all be done through you can still do it through PayPal, but through the new system. But you have to go through the new system. We're going to be canceling all the payments to the old system. So, and I think if you use PayPal, it's still pretty much the same way. It's just done through the new system, unfortunately. So, sorry, we had no way to migrate everyone over.
Yeah, so we'll keep people up to date with that. All right, so real quick, I think we have time to maybe talk about one more thing. Taming of the Brew.
You wanted to skip Taming of the Brew, go to different folks? I know that was a big one for you.
Let's do different folks then. Yeah, we will review, just if anyone wants to take a look at what we're going to be talking about, let's say next week. We're going to be doing a homebrew warlock patron, the Lady of the Lake, that we found. Yes. Thank you, Logan. So that's what we'll be talking about that next week. But if you want to take a look now, see what you think, maybe if you have any questions or any premises you want to give us during next week, feel free to contact us on Twitter, or save it for the actual episode, because that'll be fun too.
Yeah.
Okay, so different folks, or folks, depending on how you're feeling.
Folks. Folks.
Partly came up in my this partly came to my attention because Logan has a fun Aarakocra in Countless Heroes, who is a pigeon, and that is not necessarily like traditional Aarakocra. Not that Aarakocras have specific traditions, but it just made me think a lot about doing variants on existing races, things that are just like a fun way to inject a little bit of whimsy or just a little bit of interest in an NPC, or heck, even letting your PCs play something a little more unusual. So I wanted to talk a little bit about doing a little bit of variations. Aarakocra are near and dear to my heart, even though I don't play them very often. I love the idea that you could just offshoot any bird species you want. Mm-hmm. I also like the idea of doing that with the Kenku, though the Kenku have more of a, like, they look like ravens or they look like crows. But I'm 100% okay with a Kenku that is a different type of bird. I think those are really fun. I have seen such really delightful art online. I've seen blue jays. I've seen hummingbirds. I'd come up with the idea of a flamingo Aarakocra, which I thought was very fun. Just the idea of doing, oh yes, Jay, a peacock Aarakocra. That's a great idea. But yes, I just really some of the I presumably he'd have a very high charisma. Just, that's more just like brainstorming in terms of just doing something fun with the bird races.
We talked about the penguin, Aarakocra,
yes,
that swapped up the fly speed for swim speed.
Yeah. And so you can do little flavor changes just to add a little bit of interest. Obviously, a penguin Aarakocra that adds a little more whimsy to your world, depending on if that's the kind of game you want to run. If you want to do something a little more gritty, some of these sillier options might not feel like they're a right fit for your setting. But I am nothing if not amused by whimsy. So.
Yeah, but I think the Countless Heroes is a good example of where you can mix that silliness along with some seriousness. It's silly initially, but when you get to the point where you're talking about bird races in general, that's a little silly. They don't all have to look perfect and badass, and you can have a pigeon, or you can have a phoenix, like I introduced.
Heck yeah, it's hot,
which was a lot of fun. So
literally, yeah. Good example of we wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of PCs versus NPCs. I don't intrinsically have an issue with a PC playing something kind of really funky and out there, but it's a lot easier to implement as an NPC because it's like, oh, this is just a one-shot character. They show up, they go away. You realize there's a bit more breadth of experience in terms of different races. A good example of a PC though would be Pesk, our lizard folk. I like to think that her characterization shifted a little bit just in the meta side of it, because originally I didn't realize this, but then Tessa had decided that Pesk had a gecko tail, like a fat-tailed gecko, and I was like, that's adorable and completely different than what my brain said a lizard folk was. But just being like, no, if you're a lizard folk, pick a lizard, and it can be any kind of lizard. You can have an iguana, you can have a crocodile.
I'm pretty sure that from the get-go she had that.
I didn't realize it. I don't think it was overtly shared with everybody, which is wonderful.
But she's amazing. And I like Matthew just brought up Christmas elves versus Lord of the Rings elves.
Yes.
But yeah.
I started watching Hilda on Netflix, which is a little cartoon show. I fucking love it. It's so cute and adorable and wonderful. But they have elves that are this big. And they're invisible until you fill out the appropriate paperwork because they're obsessed with bureaucracy and contracts. And so it takes that idea of Fae contracts, Fae agreements, and takes it to this absurd degree where, like, one of their myths is these two families met together on a field to execute a real estate contract. And they made drafts and they signed in triplicate, and it was very dramatic. And then, like, it was like a battlefield, but instead of people, it was all crumbled up papers and red X's through things. And somebody got in trouble for only signing twice instead of in triplicate. It was a exilable offense.
All right. So let's put together a new D&D world real quick. So I'm thinking the seven dwarves from Disney are dwarves.
Okay.
All the dwarves are one of those seven dwarves.
Okay.
I'm thinking
those are the sub races. Those are the sub races for the dwarves.
Yes, those are the sub races. Happy, sleepy, dopey, sneezy, doc. Those are your sub races. I'm thinking gnomes either have to be gnomes from David the Gnome, or they have to be underpants gnomes from South Park.
Okay.
Maybe those are the two options there. That's like deep gnomes versus normal gnomes.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas elves. What are there's lots of different types of Christmas elves though. Like the elves from Arthur Christmas are very different than
the ones from the Claymation Christmas.
Than the Claymation. Oh yeah, absolutely. From Rudolph. Yeah. Yes, those elves are the best elves. All right, so then you've got what other races?
I'm trying to think. A lot of them don't have. Oh man, garden gnomes. That's a really good idea.
Garden gnomes.
They turn into stone during daytime. They got like a troll thing going.
There you go.
I like
that.
I'm just trying to think of like
trolls or internet trolls.
Okay.
That's all there are. So then that way everybody always wants to kill them always.
That just reminds me of Will's Cantata game with the I thought they were internet trolls, the ones that were spreading propaganda.
Yes.
That's all they do. Oh god, well, I don't know. Those are like the big ones that have mythology links and are in pop culture. I'm just trying to think of like not a lot of the other ones do. I mean, you could do Tabaxi. I mean, we've had this conversation before about the fact that Tabaxi aren't cats, and to minimize them or dehumanize them as cats is simplistic. But at the same time, I kind of like the Monster Hunter Palicos, so I kind of want to make them cat-sized.
I am not as big. I don't have as big of a concern, but again, I kind of give up on that one because I'm not give up. I don't plant my flag in that one because I come from a place of privilege. So, but this idea that we've done that with werewolves, the fetch with werewolves and things. I don't have a problem with if you're going to play an animal race, animalizing them a little bit. The pigeon, we make fun of Zreed as a pigeon all the time. Nobody seems to be worried about that.
Hangs out
as a matter
on
of fact, I
statues.
think a couple of the characters have given Zreed little what is the little bricks of seed called? I can't remember they're called.
Come on, you got to give her bread.
But you don't give it. No,
She probably hangs out at a bakery instead of a coffee shop in the morning.
I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's got a cute little name. The little bricks. Somebody help me out there. Little bricks of seeds they give
bricks
to
of bird seed.
They're
I don't know.
Tessa knows.
There was one more variant that you and I talk about at length a little bit, but I'm happy to just pontificate a little bit rather than debating about female dwarves. There's an oddly esoteric. That's part of the thing.
9 minutes left. We're going to do this now.
My
no,
response.
I think it's a good time. Go for it.
I was gonna say my response to you can argue if you want, but I feel like it's probably more productive for me to just present both sides of the thing and just be like, do what you want. So one particular Tessa wants me to fight this fight for her. One of the things that is often sort of joked about and talked about in D&D circles is female dwarves, whether or not they have beards. There are a lot of opinions on the matter. Some of them are maybe more heated than they need to be. I am a big proponent of live and let live when it comes to that. I think that it would be completely fine to have a situation where female dwarves come in a variety like male dwarf. Like, think about like human people in real life. Some guys can grow beards and some guys just can't. Andy can't either. So you can have the same situation with female dwarves. Some of them, it just depends on like region or family line. Maybe you have like some families pride themselves on their beard growth, and like the men and women of that dwarves. Men and women of those families are the ones that have the really elaborate braiding, and that's their deal. And then you have, southern dwarves that don't grow beards, and so the men and women don't, or like maybe the men just have mustaches, and that's about all the hair that they can grow.
I really like in Eberron, just to talk about hairstyles and stuff real quick. In Eberron, the beards all wear very well, neatly trimmed beards. They still have beards, but they're always neatly trimmed, and I like that a lot. I hadn't seen that anywhere else. With this idea that it was more socially acceptable to have a trimmed beard as a dwarf than to have a super long, bushy beard.
Yeah. Well, I came up with this idea I came up with this thought when I saw this topic come up again on Twitter. It comes up all the time. I came up with the thought of having either PCs or NPCs that are these twin sisters, and one of them has a really elaborate like mustache twirler mustache, and the other one doesn't have a beard. And that's like the main way you can differentiate the two of them. It's just one of them happens to have.
You want to mirror your own
Yep.
PC.
She's the evil twin.
I'll be very clear about this. I don't have personally. It's not something I would put into my role. The female dwarves in my world do not have beards. However, if somebody wanted to play a female dwarf with a beard, I would have no problems with that. That's their choice. It's their aesthetic. It's their character. Also, like if somebody wants to play a Goliath with a beard, I don't really have a problem with that. These are those little minor things. Yeah, it happens. It's an anomaly. People are going to be like, "Oh, look at that." With a dwarf,
hey Goliath, why do you have that fake beard? That's weird.
Yeah, what are you doing there? And you're like, okay, go ahead and pull on it. Go ahead.
Rogaine for Goliaths over here.
Yeah. But with the personally for the with the female dwarves things, one of the big reasons is I have known several people in my life, females, who've struggled with facial hair, and it was such a huge issue to them, to the point that it hurt them to think about it. The people would say things like that, makes jokes like that, because they were short and they consider themselves stocky and they consider themselves to be dwarves in real life. They always played dwarves type of thing because they struggled with that. It was more out of a respect thing that I just didn't talk about it or have that happen in my worlds. So for me, it is, and none of them, and there have been several, none of them found it empowering or were excited to see female dwarves have beards, mostly because when they would go into other games that had female dwarves with beards, they were forced to then have a beard. And it comes to that idea of, if I'm living that in life, why would I want to role play it out? Role playing is an escape, you know? So,
and depending on the person, that 100% makes sense. I personally am I'm personally in the empowered camp, partly because I'm a big fan of the Rat Queens comic series, and Rat Queens has women and men have beards. That's a point of pride for them, and there's a dwarven main character in that who she actively rejected her heritage, and so she shaves her beard when she's trying to sort of escape her family life. But then when she starts, she kind of falls back into pride in herself and pride in her family, she lets it grow out again. And so halfway through the thing, she's got this really badass, like, braided beard. And it's a symbol for her about re-entering her family life and fixing these bridges with her parents and her brother. So using it in a story way is an absolutely amazing way to utilize that. But again, with anything we've ever talked about player comfort, that's a conversation. If that's a point and you're going to make it a plot point, bring it up with your players when you're initially setting out in the world. You're like, hey, listen, it's a thing I do with my dwarves. Some people are a little weirded out by that. How do you guys feel about that? Is that something that I can do? Because I'm going to make it a plot point. Is that okay? Or you can do it in passing, and then if somebody's not comfortable with that, you don't have to do it again. But yeah, I'm a big live and let live with that. You can always hand wave it and just say, well, that was an example of a dwarf, and there's a variety in all the dwarves in my world.
Yep.
And then you can just, like I said, hand wave it if you need to.
And I think if that did happen, if there were dwarves with beards, or maybe there are some in my world, it's going to be a lot less. There would not be in a dwarven society, there would be no stigma attached to it. Matter of fact, they might even be revered as this idea they're special.
Yeah, that's sort of the vibe they give.
The problem with that then becomes, if only normally men grow beards and then a woman grows a beard and they're revered for it, it becomes like you're more like a man, and there can be a lot of weird issues with that. But
yeah, you think about the implications in the culture when you're doing things like that.
Too much. That's the goal. It's a fantasy world we're talking about.
Put a reasonable
with fantasy beards.
Yeah, put a reasonable amount of thought into it to make it seem thoughtful, but don't fixate on it if you don't want to.
Yeah, but also understand that if somebody does come up with a concern about it, take it seriously.
Listen, be empathetic.
Just nothing that we're talking about here is anything anyone needs to plant their flag in. Be like, no, I'm not moving. There's
the rub. That's what always ends up happening, is people plant their flags in this weirdly specific issue, and can't just, like, my response to any conflict about this is, do either. Don't be militant one way or the other. Just let it be malleable.
And I very much used to be a DM that was very rigid and stiff because it was my game and I'm the god and blah blah blah. And I learned over the past few years that that's not a fun way to play for everyone. It worked for the group that I played with because we all understood it and we all agreed with it. But that was a very small group of people. That was the only group of people I played with. When I started branching out there, I realized I wouldn't want to be restricted in those ways. If it was the opposite was true. So there's just times when it's just not necessary to plant your flag and just stick to it. Be flexible. Let people do what they want. In the grand scheme of things, it's about having fun. Let them try new things. So if you have
Approved.
any questions or anything you want us to tackle or talk about, or gaming social issues you'd like us to comment on, or you have a homebrew that you'd like us to take a look at that's out there, just tweet at us at Discover RPG Show, or you can email us at drpg@nerdsmith.org, or you can say something right here. And in the end, and then next week we might use your question or whatever. Also, please thank you. Tell your friends about the show. Let them know how much fun you're having. Let them know to watch the replays. And hopefully we will grow this audience like crazy next year, and we'll grow the network, and we will continue to bring you this quality entertainment.
Yeah, it's quality.
Totally quality. Look at our beautiful frame. Our frame itself says quality.
Speaking
Thank
of
you
our
guys.
frame, you can also DM us on our Twitter handles that are in our frame. So
Oh yes,
You can
that's
also
our
do that.
tweet. Our tweetables. Our tweetables are right below it.
tweetables.
We keep our
Tweetables just sounds
right
like
there.
tweetables sounds like your
Like unmentionables. There are tweetables.
no, it sounds like your social media, but you're doing social media, but you're also eating special brownies. Tweetables.
Tweetables does sound like a snack food.
Yes, it does.
It's a tweetable.
They're bird-shaped brownies.
Ooh. Blue bird-shaped brownies.
You're welcome.
You're welcome,
Twitter
Little Debbie.
headquarters in Colorado.
That's Little Debbie next year's going to come out with tweetables, and we're going to be in trouble.
Damn it.
It's on the internet. We were first. It's our idea.
All right, so we're going to take all of the things we did not. Oh, yes, Logan changed his Twitter handle. We need to fix the frame. Logan can be found at devious
I did fix this frame.
underscore
Oh, man, this is the old frame. I fixed
Oh,
it for the Ben show, and then I did not put it back. It was fixed. I apologize. Yes, mine is now at devious underscore Muppet. So I apologize about that. It is changed. Sorry, I will get that fixed. I did change it for Ben's show, and then we went back to this one.
Oh no,
So, my bad.
No, it's fine. We will do our darndest to make sure.
Only
that
because I
clear
didn't
on
want
the future
people to
frame.
think that this show was just mine. It originally was going to be just mine, but then I realized I worked
Then I
much
kicked
better
the
with
door
Angela.
in.
No, I work so much. It's a better show because Angela's here. Much better, like 80% better. You can go watch some of the old 20-sided DM if you want to see what the show would have been like without her.
So we will take anything on our session plan that we didn't get to today, and we will kick it to next week, and
Maybe.
and you'll get to. We'll try.
Most
We'll try to
likely,
kick it the
I mean,
next
most
week.
likely it'll go on next week. But if we come up with better stuff, it might get kicked. We've done that a
Like,
couple times.
Yeah, I was gonna say what was it? Chicken of the Sea was 3
That took a
weeks
long
on
time,
session
yeah.
plan board.
Thank you guys again so much.
Yes,
We
thank
are
you.
all done for us. That's it. That's it for us. We're all done. That's a more better way of saying.
Thank you guys so much
I
for
used all
helping
my
us hit-
words. They're gone now. I'm done.
Yep.
My grammar is done.
Okay, so thank you guys so much for helping us hit 400 followers. That's amazing. And we know that they're not all for us. We know that many of them are for Countless Heroes, but we still appreciate them anyway. Dance party. Is there any interest in a raid, Logan? Or are we just gonna wrap up?
We're just gonna wrap up. I don't have time to go
Alrighty.
through it. I've got other stuff
That's
I gotta do.
fine.
Sorry guys. We
Alright.
will do a raid next time. I promise. Just usually our goal is if we're over 20 viewers, we'll do a raid. So hopefully we can get to 20 next week. You guys really want a raid? Is that it? Fennec, why don't you find somebody to raid? Fennec, you can do a raid. I think you can do it as a mod if you gotta go find someone to raid real quick.
Ooh.
So you
My
can be prepping at the end of these sessions.
That's true. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. And my only request for the new year is that you are good to each other. That is very important
Yes,
to me.
please be good to each other. Be awesome to each other. Share your favorite artists. We are getting into a world where the only way for people of our generation and lower to make money is through these types of endeavors. This is the way to get ahead, unfortunately, now. The traditional ways just don't work anymore. Trust me, I've been doing it for 20 years. It doesn't work, and it's a struggle. So we decided to try something new and get become a part of this and the larger community and bring everyone together. And our only goal is to help other people do the same. With the network, our goal is to help people make a living. We don't want to become rich on this. We just want to make a living. We want to be able to do this as our job, bring entertainment, and help other people bring their entertainments to the world. So,
and we are very happy you've joined us. Thank you all so much.
Yes, we're so very, very happy. Then why is Fennec typing if Fennec is driving?
Goodness
we are going down
gracious.
To talk.
Everyone, we need a shame button. Nobody's. It's only for use when you're texting and driving.
Hold on.
And don't take the time to text. You're sorry, Fennec. Keep driving.
You know what, Denny? This is Denny Deliance. We'll go and rate him. He is a buddy of mine. He is a video gamer, but he is a huge proponent, a huge supporter of the show. So we're gonna go rate him real quick. Come along with us. And we will go say hi to Denny. Real nice guy. Hopefully, I'm going to talk with him, and maybe he and I will start doing some My Devious Muppet RPG, my Devious Muppet stuff. There's a lot of 2-player games out there I want to play, and I wanted to poke him about that. So now's a good time. So give the follows. Thank you guys. Tell everyone about us. Our big goal next year, we're going to hope to hit 1,000 followers on the channel is going to be our 2019 goal. We're going to add at least one more show, possibly 2, and just become amazing. And maybe by the end of next year, wrap up Countless Heroes. Those are all our big goals.
Oh God.
So, we got a long way to go on that, though. Alrighty, guys. Thank you again so much. We love you all, and let's go ahead and do this raid.
Bye.
Did he just start hosting someone? He just ended.
Aw, damn it.